From CRI Simple Numbers, this is Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers podcast, a podcast for those championing market growth and anchoring the nation's economy, small businesses and entrepreneurs.
Hey there. Welcome to another episode of the Simple Numbers Profitability Playbook podcast. I'm Mike Maxon. That's Brandon Gray. And we're back for another week, man. How's it going?
Oh, things are good. You know, this is one of my favorite weeks of the year because college football starts on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's going to be a fun week. You know, it doesn't feel like fall outside, but it's on its way. We're going to have.
Hey, I got to work out this morning. It was cool, man. I usually open the garage after I get the cardio in, and it was noticeable for August in Alabama.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yep.
I'm ready
So we're ready to roll.
Awesome. Well, all right. Well, today we got another one of those interesting ones we like to do every once in a while, a little bit of a media mash segment where we grab some leading articles across our favorite publication of the Wall Street Journal and do a little of the work and discuss it so you don't have to. But these are some good ones. I like to pick some good ones, create a little bit of controversy in it or a little bit of debate, or I'm sure you're going to be driving down the road and you're like, Maxon's an idiot, whatever. But at least I got you going it's Monday morning.
Yeah, I got people to thinking.
That's right. But this is a good one. I'm going to start out with my favorite one. And I found this one last week because I like this one. This is about McDonald's. Okay. So McDonald's to cut combo meal prices after convincing franchisees. This is by Heather Hayden over at the Wall Street Journal. So this is, it says the burger chain working to improve its affordability after customers recoiled from escalating restaurant menu prices. So, you've heard us talk about inflation. You've heard us talk about rising prices across the board. And is there any pushback? Can I raise my prices? Can I not? And have we hit sort of the cap on price increases where the consumers are like, okay, listen, we've dealt with it enough and now we're stopping. But folks, look, this article says that McDonald's Big Mac meals got to $18 in some places. So now you can really pay to kill yourself. And it got up to $18. I'm just sitting there like $18 for like the same Big Mac we all been eating since, we were hitting it up in college at 2 a.m., right? Like still the same meal, right? And so it's not like this has changed, at all. It's just still a Big Mac with fries and drink. And so one of the things that I saw in here that I really liked about it was like some of the key points was really the affordability, the consumer pushback, and the market tapping out on price increases.
Right.
And an excerpt from it that I particularly hit on that said restaurants, particularly fast food chains, are struggling to attract customers worn down by inflation and unsure about the U.S. economy. Traffic to U.S. restaurants has fallen 1.7% so far this year and is down 2.7% for fast food eateries, according to Black Box Intelligence. So, Brandon, as it relates to our client base and things we've been going through, what does that article bring to you?
Well, I mean, in terms of, we talk a lot about gross margin dollars being your true top line, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to get hung up in the percentage. And so you got to kind of be careful. I'm going to speak to that here in just a second. There comes a point to where the price you are trying to charge exceeds the value or the perceived value of what you're delivering. I think that's basics, right? And McDonald's, so when you say the name McDonald's, does a fine experience, accuracy of order, and speed, along with value for the product, do all those boxes get checked? No, probably none of them get checked in a lot of cases. And so you've got slow service, questionable product.
Ice cream machine never worked.
Yeah, the McFlurry's never been worked. And a premium price for it. Good, fast, or cheap, pick any two of the three kind of deal. I mean, it just doesn't add up. And so you finally see the consumer going, there are alternatives. I'm going to go somewhere else, And so, yeah, you can reach that point. Does it mean that because McDonald's is lowering their prices that I need to lower my prices as well, or that I can't continue to charge for what I'm doing? By no means. I mean, there's an example in the journal as well, an article about Rocky Mountain Chocolate Company and how quarterly they are adjusting their pricing. And now the key with what they're doing versus the approach it looks like McDonald's has taken is that they're very strategic down to the product level. So I wouldn't say you can never do an across the board price increase. I always try to avoid the words like always and never, right? But they're looking at it kind of going, all right, our margins on this specific item, because of the fluctuations with cocoa pricing and supply there, need to be adjusted, and they're looking at that quarterly. You're also looking at a price point to where it's a couple bucks for a chocolate candy versus $18 for a Big Mac meal. So you got to kind of take the price into consideration as well. So I think the takeaway here is, if you're going to increase prices, which a lot of folks need to do, you got to make sure the value, and not just because it's a value meal, the value is being delivered there. And if not, then yes, you're going to run into what McDonald's ran into, to where it's just not a match between what you're receiving in value and what you're charging for it.
Inflation or no inflation, $18 for a Big Mac meal, it just ain't sitting with me, man. I remember like 2 Big Macs for $5. I mean, there just ain't no way. Inflation, no, I'm sorry. I can't do it. I just won't eat there. Sorry, McDonald's. I do love your fries when they're hot. A double quarter pounder's not bad, but $18, I'm drawing the line.
Yep.
Just cook it myself. I make a hell of a smash burger. All right, next one. We've talked a lot about labor. We've talked about immigration, and this isn't about the immigration debate. It is about the current drop in immigration, changing the job market. So the article is by Paul Kiernan, how a historic immigration drop is changing the job market, and lack of newcomers keeps unemployment low for now, but will undercut long growth if it persists. So first of all, let's start this out. The debate, I think, is, usually is, I don't know anyone who doesn't want immigration. The debate always stems from, if it's legal, illegal, and how do you handle that piece of it? And we'll let the politics just take care of that one. But we do know that, if anyone's listening to Greg Crabtree talk, talking some declining birth rates and stuff like that, we do have to have a way to get people in here to help us with some work.
Right.
Preferably people who obviously want to work, do a good job, and contribute to society. And how do we get that? But what it talks about, and what I like is like, oh, hey, yeah, the unemployment rate, it's not going up. It's not going up. Well, yeah. Has there been a demand for workers going down? Yes. But also because the labor supply is not going up either. And so that's why when you see this push for AI, you see these other things going on, hey, it makes a lot more sense for the sheer fact that the writing's on the wall that right now we're not going to be having enough labor. So, Brandon, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a similar article in the Washington Post about it. And if I understood the article correctly, like you said, it was kind of pointing toward immigration as the biggest issue around that.
Yeah.
It's it plays a role, but the larger issue is the number of people retiring and leaving the workforce relative to the number of people who are entering the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, we've been preaching this for I know at least 3, maybe 4 years, that this was coming. We're in the thick of it. It's going to be around. Guess what? We know what it looks like for the next 20 years, and there will continue to be more people leaving than entering the workforce. And so if you're using historical data as benchmarks, it's now skewed. That's why we say there is no playbook for the current environment that we're in. And so the companies that can either use AI, can use better systems and processes, or our favorite, who can train much quicker than their competition, are going to be the ones who win. Because you are now entering into a full-blown marketplace to where there are simply not enough people for the demand that is being generated. Now it'll eventually correct, because if you got going down the road. But I mean, the folks that are retiring, if they're still consumers, eventually they'll no longer be consumers either. And, they'll start to equalize again. But, the next 15, 20 years, we're in for a challenge there. And to piggyback on the last article we looked at, supply and demand, as long as there's demand for goods and services and there is a shortage of supply of labor to deliver them, what's the price of that labor going to do? It's going to go up. So once again, there's opportunity here. I think that's the takeaway we all need to embrace. Is, you're not going to change the reality, and it could be years before we see any kind of immigration changes that allow, as Mike mentioned, folks who want to be contributors to society and pay taxes are brought into the country. So in the meantime, how can I take advantage of that? I think that's the key.
Yeah, excellent. All right, next one. I like this one too. This gets people going. I like this. Will 2025 be the watershed year for return to office mandates? That depends. And this is from Jennifer Williams. It was back at the end of 2024. I found it, but I wanted to just read it, and then bring it up and see sort of the discussion of where people are at with it, based on our client base. So I'm kind of going back to restart the discussion on it halfway through the year now, as we approach the end of it. So obviously, a lot of companies, and this goes to a lot of the tech companies, a lot of people bringing people back into the office 5 days a week. They notice a lack of productivity, camaraderie, and things like that. So they're pulling it back in, especially when they've already paid for office space that they got sitting there that, hey, isn't being used. Right? We had a 10-year lease, or we built this building, or what have you. So that's what this article really focuses on, is sort of that dynamic. But so far, Brandon, this year, and we'll touch on this one quickly. Have your clients changed? Has their thoughts about on it changed? Or are they still running sort of a hybrid or all in, all out workforce?
Yeah. I don't know that I've seen a lot make drastic changes, which I'll also point toward, entrepreneurs typically come up with the best practices, and then the large companies copy them. And then we read about how the large companies have done something great in an article. And so, a lot of folks I work with were either completely remote or hybrid long before COVID hit. And then you saw, after that, the large corporations kind of adopt that. And so, I hadn't seen a lot of folks change. I would say what I have seen them doing is revisiting some of the parameters around it. And this is a case to where, as we talk to clients, you quickly learn there is no one size fits all solution. There's a lot of variables, from one company to the next. We just got done talking about how the labor pool is shrinking. Well, when that's the case, many times you've got to find people outside your geographic footprint to fill those roles. So now you've got fully remote team in some cases. So what I'd say the predominant thing I see is a hybrid schedule, to where there's a couple of days in the office, there might be a day or 2 or 3 remote. The key is that for anyone who's working remotely, you've got to have a way to track productivity. And that's the gap that you're seeing folks kind of work on and bringing people back to the office.
I wanted to start this and then piggyback into the next one, because with mine, I've been picking up a lot of clients who have fully remote workforces, because they basically offshoring labor. They're basically working remote here, but all their people are in a building somewhere in India or South Africa, or pick your country. And so that brings me to the next one, where tech startups are no more offshoring. Startups look to spend and hire in U.S. due to a Trump tax change. And so I was fascinated by this one, and this is from Meg Tanaka here over at the Wall Street Journal. Faster deductions make adding staff cheaper when cash flow is critical. And so what they're looking for is, looks like, Brandon, the R&D tax credit side of things, which is looks to be where being able to take deductions in the same year as the expense regarding things around R&D, and I believe the labor associated with that. So some of those tax changes there especially again, and some of the lower tax rates could do it. So for companies where most spending is research and development related, the change could be transformational. Demand for U.S. developers has jumped since early July at Birchworks, a staffing agency specializing in U.S. data science and artificial intelligence roles. Despite tariffs and other turmoil, Chief Executive Michael Butt said we're up 15 to 20% in demand, and the economic uncertainty has not changed. So that's R&D related positions there because of that, the research deductions there for taxes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to speak a little bit out of school here because I am not an R&D tax expert by no claim to be. But if I recall correctly, in order to take that credit on wages, those wages must be U.S. based.
Yes,
I believe that's the case.
Yes, that is it. They do specify that in the article.
Yeah, and so it's still one of those you got to kind of look at, and as we like to say, you don't ever do anything strictly just because of the tax benefit. I want to look at it and you can analyze it and say, okay, if I get this tax benefit, I already get the deduction regardless if they're on site or onshore or offshore. If I get the R&D credit with that, then what is the effective cost of that labor with the R&D credit considered relative to if I'm offshoring that? So that's just strictly financial. I'm not even, I'm not looking at the quality of the labor. I'm not looking at the time in which it's taking to get it done and what have you along those lines. So that'd be the way you'd want to analyze that to see which is best. That being said, I'm still going to kind of try to determine, but regardless of the tax implication, what is my best approach to get the 50% return on that investment? So yeah, the tax R&D credit is part of that calculation, but I want to look and see what allows me to move the quickest, because that's part of it. What gives me the highest quality of work and what's my all-in cost going to look like? And so, I wouldn't say by changing the way the R&D tax credit, which is back to now how it used to be 3 or 4 years ago, that alone is not going to change if people offshore or not.
So what the first comment when you go to the comment section of the article, the first comment is, you should always do tax planning, but making decisions based solely on taxes is having the tail wag the dog.
Here. Yeah.
I love it. All right. Fun one. All right. Last one. We're going to end up here. And so, still, we're going to bring it back. I brought it back to this one because I wanted to bring it up. Finance executive seek stability amid erratic tariff shifts. This is from Christine Broughton. Back in March, sort of when the tariff thing kicked off. So Brandon, reading this article, they're looking at different suppliers. They're looking at passing on costs. They're looking at negotiating with vendors. That's what sort of the play was when all this kicked off. Where are we now, and what have you seen so far? I mean, a lot of this stuff has been walked back since. Some of the big ones have come down. The markets haven't seemed to have been as affected. Now, I'm not saying no one's affected. You hear me out there. I'm not saying that. I don't need you tweeting me or whatever. But it wasn't sort of as initially it was, a nuke. But now it seems to have backed off. So where are we seeing the client base in dealing with the tariffs?
Well, you kind of got a couple camps. You've got, and you can find on any day a ton of articles around companies that are going out of business because of the tariffs. And there's no doubt some of them out there to where they weren't able to adjust. They can't push the price increase through because, once again, back to $18 Big Macs, it's just people aren't going to spend for it as far as that part goes. And there's not a ton of them, but those are the ones that grab some headlines. The next group is what I would call the bigs. And I use Walmart as an example. Walmart, I think it's last week, had said, talking about their pricing and trying to keep prices low. They have worked with their suppliers on some price reductions or relative to the tariffs. They're also trying to absorb as much as possible to keep the gross margin dollars flowing in. So you got the folks that kind of are taking a little bit of an internal haircut to keep everything rolling. And we've got clients that are in that bucket. You've got, I would say the one surprise to me in all of this was the flexibility that suppliers have shown in this. So, it's our clients that went to their suppliers overseas and said, hey, here's the tariff amount. I can't absorb this. And if we push it through the marketplace, they're not going to buy this because it's it's a discretionary type of product. And the suppliers went, well, I guess, we're kind of hitched together here. We got to work this out. And so they have definitely absorbed some of it. And then you've seen either absorbing by the US based firm or a little bit of price increase.
I would say I had a few clients, it was interesting. They went to some other countries where there wasn't going to be really much of a tariff impact. And next thing you know, they found like a better supplier that they should have done, anyway, or another time. And it's like, well, sometimes a little bit of turmoil, it forces you to look at another option. And then you're like, oh, hey, this worked out better.
Yeah. And I would say too, you mentioned it was almost like a nuke that hit, back in March and April when all this was announced. I'm seeing a large group, especially entrepreneurial businesses, who've kind of went, you know what? I have spent 3 months in limbo trying to figure out what's going to happen. And every time I about figure it out, something gets delayed, pushed, or changed. You got a large group out there that's just kind of like, you know what? I don't control this. I'm just going to keep rolling. I'm going to focus on what I can control. We're going to deal with it as it comes about. But in terms of it sucking away all of my creativity and time and energy, not going to give it anymore. So I think that there's a growing number in that camp. They're kind of like, is what it is. Do what you need to do. Washington, we're resilient. We'll find a way. We're entrepreneurs. And, I'm starting to see more and more folks kind of take that approach. And so I think in total, the jury's still out. It's too early to tell. Are we going to see, as the Fed feared, massive inflation because of the tariffs? Well, you've got companies that had an abundance of inventory that hasn't worked its way through the marketplace. You've got ongoing negotiations with tariffs, and what we thought was going to be one levels now changed to another. You got suppliers that are taking a haircut. And so I don't think enough dust is settled to determine if the policy is going to, push us into a recession or if it's going to create, I know President Trump loves to talk about the billions and trillions of dollars that have come in, and he just doesn't know what to do with it and how to spend it. Well, there is a side effect to all that happening, and I don't know that we've seen that just yet. So we're going to have to stay tuned.
Awesome. Well, that concludes it. We'll stop there, but a good talk on this, man. I like bringing these up. I think I like that
bounce around. I think the takeaway for everybody listening is, you we're in a marketplace right now where you've got to be very strategic. So back to the McDonald's article, you can't just as easily like you used to do across the board sweeping price increases. You've got to look at your products, and your services by margin dollars, and where might I be able to adjust? It might be just one or two offerings that you adjust versus to across the board. Whenever it comes to, as we talked about the work from home and what have you, there's likely not a one size fits all. Yeah, you're going to take the best things that you see in the marketplace and run them through the filter of your company and your company's values and what you do and apply it and adjust it and customize it. And whenever it comes to the tariffs and the treatment, like Mike said, you may not be subject to them at all. But take the lesson of, when was the last time I shopped vendors for my product? When was the last time we had a conversation around it? And I'll share with you one thing that I heard from a client. They developed a product or a program using AI that looks at all of their POs and what they had agreed upon in prices from their vendors. And then they upload all the invoices and it cross-references them. And so they have seen, times to where it might have only been a few dollars that something was different, but you do that enough across a year, and that's real savings. And so, think through all aspects of this strategically, and even though you may not be impacted, what lessons can I learn and then apply to my business?
Yeah, great stuff. And still can't get over that $18 Big Mac meal, man. Yeah, of course, I will say this: Chick-fil-A, Athens, Alabama. Our man Micah, who works with us here. Some of you might have known him if you work with us. But I'm talking to him the other day. He's in line at Chick-fil-A, and he's like, "I just paid $15.45." Micah, how much you pay for that Chick-fil-A meal? 1655. That is, we're live here on this podcast.
Yeah.
1655 for a number one, substitute the mac and cheese for the fries and a Dr. Pepper. 1655, man. That is nuts.
I'm off to no on that one.
So I'm with Brandon on that. I love the idea. What you said earlier is like, hey, making sure your value is matching the price increase. Some of us are paying that the Big Mac that we were once getting $2 for $5. That has not changed at all. Same thing is now all of a sudden at that price. And, make sure you're doing that. So strategic price increases, strategic offerings, things like that are what's going to win here.
I'll give you this example of a change in consumer behavior. So this applies to myself. So my daughter turned 17 in a couple of days. So we did a surprise birthday party for her on Friday. And her favorite thing to eat is steak. And I introduced her to a filet cut a few months ago.
Oh, you really opened the wallet, man. You opened the wallet.
I thought she was old enough to handle it, and so, we could have went to a restaurant and gotten fillets for everybody. She had some friends over and that kind of deal. So instead, I went to Sam's Club, or Costco would be, they're about the same thing. Bought the entire beef tenderloin and then cut fillets out of it. So it essentially ended up being about a third of what it would cost if we went somewhere else. And that's, that's just consumer behavior, right? We're changing how we look at things and do things. And hey, the folks like Sam's are going to benefit. The folks like McDonald's, they're probably not. So which camp does your business fall in?
Nice. Awesome. Well, hey everyone, thanks for listening. And we'll be back next week.
Yeah. Tell others about us. Let's make this thing grow.
If you want to know more about driving sustainable profitability for your business or are interested in learning more about CRI Simple Numbers, please visit our website at simplenumberscri.com. Thanks for listening to this episode of Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers Podcast. You can subscribe to Profitability Playbook on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. If you like what you heard today, please leave us a review. This podcast is brought to you by CRI Simple Numbers LLC, a division of CRI Capital Group LLC, and a subsidiary of CRI Advisors LLC. CRI is the trusted brand under which Carr, Riggs & Ingram LLC, the CPA firm, and CRI Advisors LLC, along with its subsidiaries, deliver professional services. Please note, Carr, Riggs & Ingram LLC is a licensed independent CPA firm offering attest services, whereas CRI Advisors LLC and its subsidiaries specialize in providing tax and business consulting services. These entities operate within an alternative practice structure as defined by the AICPA Code of Professional Conduct and comply fully with applicable laws, regulations, and professional standards. Ready to simplify your business finances and drive growth? Explore valuable resources, books, and tools designed for entrepreneurs and small businesses at simplenumberscri.com.